20 years, it's my understanding, 20 years of teaching at a university and trying to challenge young people to strengthen them for the real world. Fired. Contract wasn't renewed, so it's not an overt firing, but that's basically it. Apparently, some leftist, like a single person, after 20 years complained and said, I don't like this style. And they said, you know what, we'll get rid of them. Because universities are treating students like customers instead of students. And the customer is always right. And that's the inherent problem with pandering to someone who hands you money. Let me point out the benefit of me doing what I do. See, here's the thing. On YouTube, when I make videos, there's a lot of people on the left who try and claim that Tim's just pandering to make money. Dude, I've been doing this for a couple years now. I have no idea what people like. How am I supposed to look at the opinions of hundreds of thousands of people? I just talk about things I talk about. Sometimes the videos don't work. What people don't realize is that what happens on YouTube is that I talk about what I like and people gather around while I'm speaking, not the other way around. Let me give you a real world analogy. To these people, they would assume I'm walking through a park, asking people if they like something, and then trying to build a crowd. When in reality, I'm standing on a soapbox, talking about what I like, and people are slowly gathering in front of me. Sometimes I make videos they don't like, but I just talk about what I care about, and that's really all it is. Long story short, the universities are doing something inverted. They want customers, so they will pander to what their customers want. It's different in a sense, right? If you're selling cake and you're selling spinach cake, people aren't buying it, so you change it to chocolate, and all of a sudden people buy it. Yeah, you don't sell spinach cake anymore. And that can be true for YouTubers, people like me, but I actively avoid doing this because I'm cognizant of the problem inherent when you don't actually do what you're supposed to do to help people learn, right? More importantly, I quit working for the big companies that were paying me the most so that I could just, talk about reality in at least how I see it. Zion Williamson isn't the only star leaving Duke University after this academic year, but at least the basketball phenom is allowed to leave voluntarily to pursue an NBA career. A popular professor is being driven off campus for reasons that are not entirely clear. After teaching for nearly 2 decades at Duke, Evan Charney was told last year by the university's Sanford School of Public Policy that his contract would not be renewed after this academic year. He reports that he had not been warned about any problems with his teaching and was not told why he was being dismissed. This week, as he prepares to depart, he describes what happened after he filed a complaint with Duke's faculty hearing committee. Unlike his Sanford colleagues, this outfit at least gave him some vague sense of why he was getting sacked. Professor Charney's tendency to provoke negative reactions and perhaps harm among some students in the classroom due to his confrontational teaching style, a style that had a tendency to be polarizing among students, particularly in a required Sanford course in which not all students could choose to have Professor Charney as an instructor. So we see this tweet here that's highlighted. Fabricating research will not get you fired from Duke, discussing controversial subjects in the classroom and thus violating the ideologically motivated safe space culture of critical theory. That will. Not that the faculty hearing committee agreed with the decision to let him go, adding, the members of the panel were disappointed with Sanford's handling of Professor Charney's reappointment. Professor Charney was, for many years at Duke, a highly rated university decorated and for many, many students, beloved and formative professor. He was an asset to Duke. But perhaps the committee was not disappointed enough to save his job. The committee either could not or would not overturn the decision of Duke's Sanford School. Mr. Charney adds another curious detail. Last April, I was informed that my contract would expire in 1 year, and was then assigned to teach 2 classes of the very same required Sanford course, one in the fall and one in the spring, in which I supposedly had a tendency to harm students. If Sanford actually believed their own rhetoric, they would be guilty of knowingly endangering their students. So why did he lose his job? Without clear and specific allegations, Mr. Charney is left to opine. The answer, I believe, is twofold. First, the complaint of a handful of students concerning the events of a single class in which we discussed racism at Duke. Second, an administration willing to give this complaint absolute credence and greater weight than a record of 20 years as an outstanding teacher, and to distort that record to ensure a negative vote of the faculty. Welcome to the future. You can be a great person. 20 years ago did one thing wrong, and they will find it, and they will use it to destroy you. You can be a great teacher with 20 years at a university doing a good job, and they will destroy you if one group complains one time, because there is no forgiveness. You want to know why apologizing makes no sense? Recently, Sargon of Akkad, while he's running for office, was asked to apologize for a comment he made on Twitter, and he refused. Majid Nawaz said, "Why don't you apologize?" Sargon refused, and he was right to do so because there is no forgiveness. Apologies do nothing anymore. It used to be that you'd apologize. It was a learning moment. We'd move on, but not anymore. We can see a massive problem with whatever this culture is, and that they won't accept your apology. You can say it over and over again. They will never let it go, and they will take everything from you. You apologize. You prove them right. You are pleading guilty, and then they will punish you. The only thing you can do is circle the wagons and say, no. I was almost going to swear. No. The other issue we have here in the university system, you need harm, okay? When the example I often give is playing guitar. I've been playing guitar most of my life. I have calluses on my fingertips. You could file the dead skin off. It's gross. It's because playing the guitar actually injures your hand. But that injury strengthens your fingers, and eventually you can play without injury. In fact, some performers, their hands bleed up on stage from playing so much. And they take that pain, and then the skin heals over, and it forms a callus, which protects the finger from the future. Something else happens. There's a thing we call hippers in skateboarding. When you fall down, slam your hip, a bubble forms. It's a calcium deposit. My understanding is that it forms to try and protect that area from impact. It's fluid. A calcium-like fluid, a calcium-rich fluid builds up to protect that area that was injured in case of another injury forming. It's an evolutionary defense. In this world, you must take harm to become strong. When you do, say, like martial arts, and you're like punching through bricks, your bones break a little bit and then reform a little bit stronger, and over time the density improves. You need to experience this to grow. When you exercise, you are damaging your muscles, you are using them, and they come back stronger. These young people don't want to do any work, they don't want to struggle, so they demand the firing of someone after 20 years of hard work. This is the world that's being built right now, and this is one of the reasons I'm so heavily focused on this psychosis. I get emails from people periodically saying, I just want you to talk about the right. Show me the conservatives. Show me the conservatives who are saying, let's make people weak. Show me the conservatives who are saying, let's fire people from their jobs for being, wrong. It's not the case. It is moderates. It is libertarians, former liberals, people like me who are still identify as a liberal, and it's conservatives saying enough. And it's the regressive left gaining ground and being given ground by these institutions. They are institutionalizing intolerance and racism and anti-Semitism. Oof, excuse me. Burping. Mr. Charney clearly has the support of many students from various backgrounds. Dozens of them signed a letter published in the student newspaper which noted, his courses undertake the difficult challenge of exposing students to viewpoints that conflict with how they think and what they value. And although many students find this teaching style uncomfortable, this is both welcomed and desired. In this Socratic format, the professor leans into students' discomfort in order to encourage self-examination and critical inquiry. Because of this, Professor Charney often takes on positions that are not his own in order to illustrate perspectives from across the spectrum. His rationale is clear. Without confronting new ideas, students go through Duke unchallenged and are unable to evaluate the merits of competing claims. And not just that, they won't be able to cope with it when they encounter this in the real world where you will not be protected. If you walk out in the street and someone says something, there is nothing you can do to stop them. They become intolerant and terrified. There's a video from Sargon where he's in, I think, Bristol, and some Antifa guys confront him, and they're visibly shaking. They're terrified because they don't know how to cope with reality. So they get violent, they panic, they go into shock, they shiver and shake, terrified. And this is one of the biggest problems, the violence that emerges from the state of shock and the fear they have. Mr. Charney links to various other letters from students, including this one. This woman said, as a woman of color, I write to bring attention to an aspect of Charney's teaching that will be as missed as much as it is needed in today's political climate. The climate at Duke reflects the polarization of the country at large. Conversations are halted before they can even begin. Instead of listening, instead of understanding or trying to understand, people on both sides are combative and dismissive. Charney taught us how to have those conversations, how to navigate race relations, how to empathize. Perhaps Mr. Charney's problem was not the fact that he addressed sensitive topics related to race. He seems to have concluded that his offense involved challenging a particular point of view. He writes, the complaint of a group of conservative students who felt singled out or disrespected or uncomfortable in class would be taken far less seriously. I have been on the receiving end of faculty emails making light of just such complaints. Nor would a complaint by religious students that God and Christianity were mocked by their professor have much purchase. And I have never heard that Sanford's safe space is a welcome refuge for the generally reviled minority of open Trump supporters on campus. Nor have I heard of trigger warnings for depictions of disrespect to the American flag or harm to the unborn. There's particular irony in Duke sacking Mr. Charney for offering some students by addressing a topic related to race. Regular readers may recall, this is the same university that employs Nancy MacLean, who published the bogus claim that the late Nobel Prize-winning economist James Buchanan, who contributed to an anti-segregationist newspaper, was the author of a diabolical plan to favor rich white people. One of her own colleagues on the Duke faculty called her book containing the smear a work of speculative historical fiction. Yeah, there's a bias against conservatives, if you haven't realized it. Well, we'll wrap this one up. I'm pretty wiped out. Meanwhile, the school has decided it can no longer tolerate Mr. Charney. Details on his case are few, but so far there is nothing in the public record to suggest his offenses rival those of Miss MacLean. It seems that at Duke, nobody gets fired for insensitive comments or even fake history as long as those offended are non-leftists. Yes. Welcome to reality. If some people on the left are angry, the power they have is institutionalized and they will wield it against you in the media, in the universities, and in technology. And it's causing real harm. It is. I think I read a story the other day about the coming Civil War. I don't know when or how or what will happen, but a crisis is coming. At least I think so. And a historian said the Civil War in the U.S. happened because both sides viewed each other as demons, as evil. And what's the rhetoric today? People like Notch saying the left is evil, and the left saying the right are Nazis. Where do you think that leads us? I'll see y'all tomorrow at 10 a.m.